think the environment has been changed.
What we're saying is have a heart.
We've got to be able to regenerate our
There'll be
economy.
people who are kind, people who are cruel, but that's life. You can be bigoted about bigots. I'm fine with that. What's wrong with Singaporeans?
Welcome back. It's said that those who don't learn the lessons of history are condemned to repeating them. Now, we have just heard that the closeness of the different races was better in the past, and today there's a greater consciousness, perhaps of policies of the differences between the races. So what I'd like to ask the panel is, what can we do to ensure that we pass on the lessons of the past to the current generation?
I think we need to cement common experiences, right? Which in the past we had a lot of these common experiences, right? Okay, but today our children no longer have that. It truly takes a village to raise a child. Children do not grow with racial discrimination, right? They learn that from their parents and from their significant others. Okay, so we really need to get them to mix, right? And then as we mix, they begin to appreciate differences. That race actually is an empty category, right? And they need to be taught and say, hey, look, that's not a polite way of doing it, right? Okay, we need to make race colorblind in our kid. And you have to do that consciously. You cannot take for granted that because the father has many multiracial friends, the children will be. It's not going to be like this. So we need to create the common experiences, and the best place to do that is in the schools, right? Especially in the areas of recreation, sports, right? Even in study, okay? So that must be where the solution begins, in the school where the children mix. We only reach the point where we think we are comfortable when you allow your children to play, my children, without adult supervision. Are we there? We are not there.
So, Michael, you're talking of cross-cultural mixing together and playing, and
yes,
and maybe in school.
From the children.
Okay. Can I ask a question? Whether we are knowing the differences between the races, are we institutionalizing the differences in the races, or should we be striving more for a Singaporean identity rather than our own ethnic identity? And is such a thing possible? And again, I go back to what Mr. Lee Kuan Yew has said, that if you think that we can, then you must be colorblind.
You know, environment sets the scene for everything. You know, environment. So I think it starts, like you say, with the schools, but even way before that, it starts with children and where you live. You see, all of us used to live in a kampong, you know. You can have a rich house. Like I grew up in Rose Lane, Tanjung Katong. We were obviously the richest family on that lane. But next door, they had this house with Indians, Malays, Chinese. It was owned by the Catholic organization, rented out to people. There's a very poor Indian family at the end of the road, a Chinese family, etc. But we never felt, you know, we were rich or poor in that sense, because we always organized games for all of us and the environment. You know, we will have kite flying, we will plant vegetables.
You had time to play.
Of course, well, yeah, exactly. We had time to play, and we had the environment to play. You look at a HDB estate now, you come downstairs, everything is so prim and proper, right? So my suggestion is, dig a big hole in every HDB estate, many holes, put water in there, put fish in there. Kids are drawn to water.
Parents not allowed.
No, this is where the parents must then, that is how. So then you bring back the rugged society which we had before. All of us used to go camping, hunting and all that. I mean, I stole a chicken when I was 16 years old with my girlfriend, you know. We go to a barbecue, we don't bring any meat. We catch a chicken from somewhere else to barbecue it. That's how we grew up as warriors, you know. So, as I said, bring the warriorship back.
Really messed up. We weren't friends with you when we were growing up. My God.
Bring the environment back. You know, bring the environment back.
Is that
bring
practical?
Bring fruit trees back. Look at every HDB estate is so prim and proper. One day my driver drove me and I was waiting for somebody, and I looked at this group of kids. They came down. They were playing football in the void deck. Football in the void deck. Like, hello, give me a break. After a while, they were bored. Then it went to the vending machine, boom, bang the vending machine, right? Some kids were cycling, and what were they doing? Up and down the chairs and things like that. The HDB estates are so prim and proper, so plastic. Kids are not growing up as children anymore as we did. So we don't play together, we don't speak together, we don't steal chickens together, we don't steal fruits together, right? So I think the environment has to be changed.
If I may go back to Mr. Lee's point about you must be colorblind. I think colorblindness has less to do with the colors out there, but it has to do with the person who look at those colors, whether the colors matter to us. Okay, you can look at the colors of a rainbow and say, look, there are 7 colors, right? Some other look at the color of a rainbow and say, no, it's white. True enough, you put it all together, it's one. Singaporeans. I can look at you and say, you're Caucasian, yeah, you're Indian, but it doesn't matter to me. So that's color blindness. So color blindness has to do with the response to the multiracial facade that we have, right? So if we keep emphasizing Malay, Indian, Chinese, and all that, or even add an adjective and say I'm a Singaporean Chinese and so on, that really kills us, you see. But if we emphasize, right, to activities, to some platform, right, repeatedly emphasize the value of citizenship, we have a lot of common interests, common things that we do, we can talk about it. National service for one, right? Singlish for another, right? And so many things, okay? But we don't identify that as that make us one. One doesn't mean we have to be homogeneous. We will never be, right? But there's a whole series of Singaporean experience that make us unique, make us exceptional. You know, okay? We should embark on those things, right? And we should start that with children.
I'm not that optimistic. I think time has changed, society has changed. We are no longer the Kampong that we used to be. We are now the international city, the most expensive city in the world. Okay.
Only on what foreigners spend, not on the local.
That is what the government says.
Yeah.
Anyway, there are a lot more fault lines today than say 60 years ago, 30, 40 years ago. It's no longer just racial issues. We have religious issue. We have the LGBT cropping up. We have foreigners versus Singaporean issue. We have the new citizen versus old citizen versus PRs versus tourists. We have so many other issues that are cropping up. There are a lot of other issues that are actually overseas are also getting imported into Singapore and becoming an issue. There are so many different fault lines nowadays, and we are no longer as homogeneous as we are. So if we want to say that, oh, let's resolve this racial issue and make us back to the good old days where people are not discriminatory, I think as what Ivy said, we need to be kind. But in this day and age, are we able to be kind? We look at when you go into MRT, we're all squeezing into the train. Everybody's fighting for space. What kind of kindness are we talking about? When people see that there's an old man or a pregnant woman, what do? They hide and pretend that they are asleep. If there's no kindness, how are we going to talk about removing racial discrimination or other kind of discrimination? We are so jam-packed as a society with the population that there is no room for the good old days anymore. So I'm not idealistic.